My name is Don. I'm with Game Server Services, and I am actually speaking on behalf of Kazutomo Niwa, who's the CEO of Game Server Services. He's over there sitting in the back. Yeah, he's a little bit shy, but he's the guy who basically, Niwa-san's formerly from Nintendo Japan, where he developed and ran the game server operations for Nintendo and its developers. He saw an opportunity to really address a big pain point for game developers, which was game server operation. And so, therefore, GS2 was born. Niwa-san also saw that there was a shift in the market that was coming, and which is something that we'll be talking about today. So, has anyone heard of hybrid casual? Let's see, raise hands. Okay, so you guys are probably already know all this topic, so maybe I don't even need to cover it with you all, but for those who do not know, I'm going to talk about the hybrid casual momentum. This is something that was definitely in the Japan and Asia market, has really been growing rapidly over the past few years, and in fact, in the mobile game space, of course. And the US market, believe it or not, is the fastest growing market globally for this type of game. But of course, most of the successful developers for these type of games actually come from Asia. And so, probably not well known for developers, but again, maybe you know the titles, but we'll talk a little bit about those developers as well. So hopefully this session will provide a little bit of that gap closing there. So, hyper casual. See, we believe it actually ran its course. Basically, if you think about hyper casuals, they tend to often struggle to keep players beyond day 7 because the core gameplay is very basic, right? You're talking about single swipe, single tap, and players quickly lose interest. So they also, because there are games out there, there's so many, there's a plethora of these hyper casual games, so it's easy to jump. So what does that mean? Well, we're talking about loss of monetization, right? Because you have limited monetization opportunity. Hybrid casual really didn't come out of nowhere, but it's because of this limitation of the hyper casual games that really came to existence. So hyper casual, if you think about advertising, right? Cost per install has now become much unprofitable, right? Because of external factors. You could probably imagine the privacy, etc. But the fact is that lifetime value stays the same if you're on hyper casual. So you have to look at how do you raise the lifetime value of your game. So when it comes to how revenue has been earned in the past, it's just primarily from ads or billing elements that basically remove the ads, right? Hybrid casual games are designed to increase the lifetime value by adding chargeable elements, right? Chargeable elements to the game that allows players to enjoy the game more. What that means, so if you look at the comparison, what is hybrid casual versus hyper casual? I know I'm talking casual, but really it comes down to this. Hybrid casual games have more game-like experiences compared to hyper casual, which I said was single tap, single swipe. Hyper casual is probably the easiest way to think of it. They're like arcade games, right? Because hybrid casual have more core game mechanics, and yet, if you think about the old arcade days, right? You put in quarters, and so there's this whole system that's put in place to let you play more and more. So hybrid casual games also have that, as I was saying about the quarter effect, it has that long-term engagement with players without having to constantly recycle players. In fact, hyper casual games, that's exactly what happens. Because they keep losing players, their whole focus about that whole mechanic is around just recycling players over and over again. Hybrid casual games, the best part about it is that you get to retain them, and therefore you're going to have better monetization opportunity. So what that means now is that you're going to get not just from your advertising, but you also get directly from the players, the revenue. I have a feeling you guys know what these 3 games are, hopefully? No? Okay, well, if for those who don't, Archero is a game that is a pioneer in this hybrid casual segment. It's developed by Habi of China. And if you look at the game itself, it's a simple top-down arcade shooter, right? And it's like, it's really a shooter puzzler. And they have all these kind of mechanics that actually has retained. And I'll show a little bit about what their revenue looks like. Later on, that same studio took pretty much the same similar game system mechanics from this game and brought it over to Survivor.io. And Survivor.io is a clone of Vampire Survivor, but it's also, well, in my, the way I kind of look at it, it's kind of like Robotron, for those of you who are old enough to know that. It's like something that could be played on the Sega Genesis, although maybe the graphic resolution is maybe a little bit better, right? but the color palette is the same. But again, that's where the casual aspect comes from. It's much more of an arcade type experience. And of course, seeing these two titles and the success of them, other companies have followed suit. And so there's this game called Legend of Slime, Idle RPG War. This game is actually really stats-based. You don't actually play the game. You actually just go and manage the stat upgrades. And while you watch your character, the slime, just basically automatically do its actions. So for those who are really like big time stat nerds, you love the grind of the stats, this is your game. But that's the thing. It's in Japan, this is also very prevalent. And you'll see how popular this kind of game is over in Asia. So this is what the revenue looks like, right? According to Sensor Tower, right, in last year, players downloaded hybrid casual games 5.1 billion times. I didn't know that until I looked it up. This is how popular these games are. In fact, this category has earned $1.4 billion in revenue in 2022. So that is a significant growth. Like just literally a year ago, it was below 1 billion. That's how fast this category is growing. And this genre is popular worldwide. This is not just some niche market. In fact, as you could tell, the US leads most of the way here. And as I was saying, like for that idle RPG game, Japan's right there too. But these are the kind of games that actually you would have experience in the arcade, you would have experience in probably your Super Nintendo and such. These are the type of games that are now starting to come to the forefront, but with mobile mechanics, right? The mobile game mechanics. So now you look at retention, and you think about day 7. So that's the blue that you see here, right? High retention for these 3 types of hybrid casual games versus the hyper casual games, which is on the right side. And you have games like Bridge Race, Merge Master, what was the other one? Going Balls, right? So they have day 7, but really what's more important is to look at what happens 30 days later, right? And you'll see that the retention on these hybrid casuals is a lot better, right? Because you have retention, because you have the engagement, because you have the monetization opportunity, which I'll talk about in a second here. So the game mechanics here. So how do they gain, right, this long-term engagement and monetization? It really comes down, believe it or not, the origin comes from Japanese social games. So kind of similar to what you have probably seen on Facebook, right? Like with Zynga and such. Japanese social games kind of took that to another level, right? They really played on Facebook, on Mixi, and these type of other social platforms, and really built on it. Over 10 years, they've been refining this game standard. And this system has just been around. They really found a way to make this work. And that's why, believe it or not, mid-core games, mid-core as they call it, which is like one step above hybrid casual, are now very popular in Japan. And so the 3 titles that I just mentioned earlier, right, Archero, Survivor.io, and Legend of Slime, these are all using this mechanic here. This is what's called the game cycle in Japan, very standard phrase. But it really comes out to these 3 components, right? You have your in-game components, and then you have your character progression, and you have what's called, of course, unfortunately sometimes it has a little bit of a kind of a negative connotation, which is gacha. But if you think of it as like supply crate or bonus rewards, it sounds very different. And these 3 are really what, as you build it correctly, of course balance means everything. Of course, for all of you who are developers, you know how to balance your games. This is pretty much the core for whether you have a horse trading game or mid-core RPG game. They all use this type of system. So login rewards, let's start there, right? Because I think it's something that's very familiar, right? You go into your game and then the next thing you know, it's like, hey, I got this bunch of money. This is awesome. What can I buy now? Believe it or not, that's part of the game system mechanic. Because the idea there is that you're going to get this bonus and you're actually being taught how to spend your money. And you have your choice of how to spend your money. So now you know where the game store is, right? I know it sounds very basic and simple, but this is the start of where you start to learn how to use your money and how to customize, how you optimize, how you upgrade, and so forth. This is really the beginning. So every single, whether it's a Japanese social game, every game that we're talking about with hybrid casual, this is what they're starting off with, right? And of course, this is very important for the free players. This is a free-to-play game, but they get that money, a good chunk of money starting off, so they can start to get used to how to play the game. And then, of course, character and equipment. This is important because that's where you're going to get your retention, right? This is where you're going to get your customization, your management. You're going to have your custom design. It's essential. So designing the game in such a way that players gradually build up their characters and equipment over time. You think they're going to let it go? Probably not. That's why you get that long-term engagement. So another critical part of the game. Each one, you can see each one of the examples here with each of the games, how they're placing them. Leveling up, upgrading, right? This is pretty much a straightforward part. But again, the same characters and equipment that you're going to collect and manage and customize, each one of those also have an ability to have progression. Because you're going to want to level up each one of those elements means you'll always come back and that reinforces the user engagement. And of course, gacha, bonus rewards, supply crates, treasure chests, you know what I'm saying. Monetization is actually achieved by this, by basically making bonus equipment and characters available to these chance generators. Now, we're not talking about gambling here. All we're talking about is just making microtransactions. You have to have a balanced game economy here. So we're talking about taps, right, and sinks. Taps are like, where you go to get your game resources, so that's your currency. And then your sinks, where are you going to spend those resources? And then ultimately, your pinch point, where does your resource get scarce? And a lot of that, your bonus items here are helping to balance the game economy. That's really the main function behind here. So it really is a way to not just monetize, but it's actually a way of engaging people. And then of course, you have your in-game currency. So of course, you need the money to spend. But this is also the place where you have your free players are getting. This is where they're going to get their currency, and then they're going to figure out where to spend. So you need for every game this type of setup, and so that you can make sure that you have every time you log in, you're going to get some currency to come and play. And so it's a critical part of the game cycle that we have here. Time, okay, not much time left, so I'll breeze through the rest here. Recovery time, again, pretty straightforward, but this is really about kind of pacing the game, right? You don't want people to suddenly burn through and get burned out of the game. You have to then pace the timing so that they're always wanting to come back for more. And of course, probably the average playing time for these three titles are about 20 to 30 minutes. So that's a well-balanced length to kind of maintain that long-term engagement. And of course, you need a message box. Simple reason, because notifications are disruptive and annoying. So you want the message box to let people know, hey, there's a message waiting for you. And usually that message has some kind of bonus or some information about your chance to kind of upgrade and so forth. So a message inbox is actually pretty critical in this cycle. So with that, where does all these, what do all these gaming mechanics have to do with game server services? Well, game server services provides the game system solutions for developers who want to create hybrid casual titles. So I'm going to play a quick video here. I hope this works. Oops.
Game development has undergone a major change with the advent of general-purpose game engine platforms. Title-specific game engine development is no longer necessary, allowing developers to focus on making games more interesting to play. On the other hand, many game servers for online play are still developed and operated individually with specifications determined by each title. With game server services, you can simply call the feature API, eliminating the need for operations such as capacity management, security measures, and dead or alive monitoring. Unlike most game servers, which are designed primarily for online competition, features such as event scheduling, mission setup, and in-game store monetization are among the more than 30 live ops functions offered by game server services. Game server services, a simpler, easier way to manage your game live ops needs. Try it out today.
So simply put, game server services provides easy-to-use game system solutions for game developers to really, if you want to bring your games out to the market quickly, save time and cost on your development and operations, and want to use a game server. Well, we have over 30 functions that you can use that you can easily plug in and play. And of course, it supports all the latest Unity and Unreal game engines, and it can be on various platforms. And really what it comes down to at the end of the day, we want to, with our experience working with successful Japanese game developers, and as well as knowing these type of functions. These are all secure, by the way. So we make sure that these systems are as unhackable as possible, because we know how important that is as well. This is where we believe that we could provide services to help you really increase your user engagement and also monetize your game more easily. So how that looks is like this. So basically, every one of these games, for every type of mechanic that we just showed right now, we have every different function that you can simply just apply to your code and simply apply into your Unity or Unreal background, game engine background. So we also, of course, have analyzing metrics, because, of course, when you're looking to improve your game and increasing your user engagement, it's important that you be able to see the data so that you can improve your game. But if you have a chance, again, if you want to build your hybrid casual titles and you want to make it so that it's easy and something that you can save time and cost on, please check us out. All right. Thanks, everyone.